Painting with Menoth John is presented in Super Legitivision. Super Legitivision, the future of podcasting. It's .com.
Hello, I'm
Menoth John.
and I'd like to welcome you. First of all, let me take just a moment to thank you for allowing me back into your homes. If this is your first time with us, let me extend a personal invitation for you to drag out your
miniatures
and paint along with us each week. Let's go over to the canvas here and let's get started. I believe, every day's a good day when you paint. I believe, it'll bring a lot of good thoughts to your heart. I believe, every day's a good day when you paint. I believe, it'll bring a lot of good thoughts to your heart. Let's build a happy little cloud. Let's build some happy little trees. There are no limits here. You start out by believing here. You can almost paint with anything. All you have to do is practice.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to your Sunday. God damn it. I can't believe that I screwed up the frickin' cropping on the damn... Here, let's get that off of there. Let's get the green screen correct, ladies and gentlemen. Honest to sweet Lord baby Jesus. Anyhow, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Privateer Press's favorite podcast. We are the Painting with Menoth John show. You know, they love us more than they love their own show because we tell it like it is, and we have people in our chat room from the company to verify that. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is your Sunday night extravaganza. We are here, as usual, on Sunday night to provide you the kind of entertainment that the wonderful world of Disney, which isn't even on fucking television anymore, can't do for you anymore. Ladies and gentlemen, up in the catbird seat, we like to think of him as the wind beneath my wings, the man that makes all of this shit happen. That guy, Mr. John Spencer.
Hey-o!
Oh, shit, John. We made it through another week, and we have not only Chili Winters in the chat room, we also have Will Pagani. And this is likely the end of his run at Privateer Press. Nobody got the memo to Mr. Will that showing up in this chat room is no bueno. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have an amazing show ahead of you tonight, or something. And we're going to talk about stuff. I've been drinking nothing but hard alcohol for the last half hour during the pre-ramble. John, were you aware we have a pre-ramble on this show?
I was aware. We talked about all sorts of crazy stuff.
We did talk about all kinds of crazy stuff. You know, we're willing to bet that 9 out of 10 pre-rambles are not ours. But ours is. We're that 10th one. And I'm going to start off with a Cannon Blast. No, it's not Cannon Blast. It's Jacko Blast, which is the favorite liquor of the Porn Producers Association of America. And then we're going to be moving right on to that, John, to a beer brought to me by a good friend of the show, Patrick Augustin, Dirty Little Freak from Duclaw Brewing. It's a coconut or some shit beer. It's got flavors in it. So
Strange.
it's supposedly transcendently amazing. Hey, Dow Dark, it's great to see you. Glad you could make it. What are you having for your beverage this evening, John?
Well, I'll start with the shot of Cannon Blast, actually Cannon Blast.
Woohoo!
And then I've got a Kraken with some Dr. Pepper in it.
Well, that sounds like a wonderful thing. You know, I was almost going to get some orange juice to have a force blow tonight, but I decided that this pumpkin spice fucking rum, whatever the shit it is, has got to go. So, on behalf of Privateer Press, hey, Ron.
Ron.
Shit. Flight Medic's in the house. Congo, the Jorga Man's in the house. You know, folks.
Yeah, Flight Medic got his internet back after 10 days.
There you go. Flight Medic, you know, we're happy to have you here. And on behalf of the Painting with Menoth John show, we talked about you last week, so we're not going to talk about you this week. You know, John, we have sponsors. And
We do.
And one of our sponsors is KR Multicase. Now, I got to tell you, John, that not everybody understands how KR Multicase is able to utilize subatomic particles in the use in the protection of their models. Were you aware of that, John?
I was aware of that. I had people asking me this week about him.
That's right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of KR Multicase, we have a very special guest that's going to be able to explain subatomic particles and how they're used to protect your models. Ladies and gentlemen, in from the swamp, here is a black-eyed wrestler for subatomic particles related to KR Multicase. Hi, I'm a black-eyed wrestler. You know, we're from the Minions faction, and as a result of not getting played very often, we've had the opportunity to go to school. I got my PhD in physics because physics is a thing that involves subatomic particles. Now, I'm going to tell you right now that KR Multicase knows more about subatomic particles than Rabelbaum or Babel or even WG, Workshop of Games. You know, they don't know shit about subatomic particles like I do. Now, KR Multicase utilized 16 or 17 subatomic particles in the creation of their foam. Now, that may not mean a lot to you at home, but I can tell you, when I slide between the sweet sheets of Butterfoam, I know that I'm being caressed by the finest of all quarks and charmed gluons. So, I'm going to tell you right now, whether you're a believer in superstring or merely quantum mechanics, I'm going to tell you, KR Multicase, tell them Menoth John sent you the Schrödinger equation, and that means you should get a discount even if they don't offer one. Anyhow, KR Multicase, it's the shit. Ah! So there you go, folks. That's a gator for...
Gators were so well educated.
They are. So there you go. Gators for that are explained to you how subatomic particles are used at KR Multicase to create that Butterfoam that keeps your models going. Anyway, so we've got a very controversial show ahead of us, John. Were you aware of that?
I was aware of that as of this morning when I checked Facebook.
We're very controversial, and we're willing to tackle the hard topics. And you know, the topic that we're going to talk about tonight is spam. Now, spam isn't just a ham product anymore. Spam is also a thing that is brought to you by the Privateer Press Company, and in one of the lists that's made its way around the internet is this thing called a Mad Dog list. So we're going to talk a little bit about spam and whether or not it's good for the game. And keeping with that theme, we're also going to talk a little bit about Khador, because one of our favorite people, Kovnik Scotty Potty, he's a crony. He wanted us to do some dojo for some Kovnik, or Khador, or whatever the fuck that faction is called. And we're going to try it. We don't know anything about it, but we'll make it up as we go along. And then we're going to talk about movies and stuff after that. But we've got a lot of really cool things. I'm going to be painting a gator. John, I'm going to go over to the painting cam if that's okay with you.
Oh, feel free.
All right.
I think they come for the painting. They stay for the shenanigans.
They do. It's painting provided to you using subatomic particles. Now, folks, we saw our spokesmodel here, the subatomic particle gator. And as you can see, I'm all finished up with him, and I'd like to talk a little bit about water effects. And so I tried a couple of different water effects. I used the Secret Weapons. I'm going to put this up here on the camera here too. I used the realistic water from Secret Weapons, as well as the. And what I learned was it goes on very easily. It's a very good from a viscosity standpoint. So it's not very high viscosity. It's able to kind of get in there and flow around a little bit. But what I did is I finished it off with the Woodland Scenics. And the Woodland Scenics is more popular, I would say, with the train community necessarily than with the miniatures community. But what I found is that the Woodland Scenics seem to dry a little thicker, which to me means that it might have less water in it. And I really liked what it gave to me here. The mistake I made, and the reason I'm telling you this, folks, is I don't want you to make the same mistake that I did, is seal your model before you put the water effects in. And
yes.
the reason it's important to do that is if you airbrush your your sealer on like I do, or if you rattle can it like many people do, that will cause those water effects to go all dull on you and look stupid. And we don't want that.
Well, dull's actually not bad for a swamp, luckily.
Yeah, it's not what I'm shooting for, though, on this model. I want it to be a little more shiny.
Can you just throw a gloss varnish on it?
So I could do that. That is certainly something I could do, or I could just brush it on. And I think that's probably where I'm going to end up with this guy, is I'm just going to brush seal this guy.
Yeah, I brush seal everything, but I figured I'd
Yeah.
throw options out there for
No.
everyone else.
But he turned out pretty good, John, I think. He's
Yeah, he looks good.
Yeah, he looks pretty good. Another thing that I did on this model that I really highly recommend to painters out there who are looking for some easy ways to kind of up their game a little bit is that I did use the Citadel Typhus Corrosion and the Citadel Rise of Rust on this guy as a way to go after and I'm going to get my brush out here to point, to go after this patina that I put on his shoulder pad. He's stomping around out here in the swamp. It's highly unlikely he's going to have a shiny metal shoulder pad. So I rusted him up a little bit. And remember, folks, this is a product you don't want to put on with a very good brush. This is one you kind of get over there and kind of dab at it a little bit. This one is a dry brush type of a technique on it. So, and you don't want to go crazy with this. You don't want it to be orange. You want it to be rust colored. So, and you do that by just kind of backing off on it a little bit, saying, take a minute and say, I'm going to have a calm moment here. You find your happy spot. And then you very gently dry brush it, using a caressing type of a feel to it. You want it to love it. You don't want it to, you don't want to give it the business. You want to give it a little bit of the, just kind of a gentle touch, like you might with someone you love. So, there you go. So that's a gator, that I did. That's a black-eyed wrastler. And then, folks, we've been painting right along on these fellas. This is the gator that's rising up out of the swamp. We saw that when I did the green stuff sculpting on him, and I'm very pleased with how he's turning out. He's especially the abdomens. If you can see it down there a little bit, his abs turned out pretty cool. I decided rather than going with a leather face look on this one like I did on this one, I decided to go with a skin face look on this one. Now, these are modeled to have little faces in them, like they've actually torn the face off of somebody, and I decided to accentuate that a little bit on this guy.
Because that's not creepy at all.
Oh, not even a little bit. So he's coming along. I also decided on the fence here that is coming along, I'm going to put a little bit of slimy mud, swamp mud on it. And I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this yet. I'm going to probably... He's going to get a little bit of maybe of a glossiness to it to make it look wet and slimy. But I'm going to look at some slime before I get too far into this and see what slime really looks like, because I'm not really sure. I haven't spent a lot of time, shaking hands with slime. That's not what I do.
You're not in politics.
No, exactly. I haven't drained the swamp yet, John. But neither has Trump. So there you go. So I've got rope to paint on him, and that makes me want to die.
Yay, rope.
Yeah, fuck rope. And this guy's got a lot of rope on him. This is my blind walker. And he's getting pretty close to getting some washes. And so I need to... What I've decided with these candles in here, because I don't know what exactly to do with them, is I'm going to wash the whole model first. And then I'm going to come back. And what Privateer did with them is they painted them red and then came back with yellow. And I liked the way that gave it some differentiation. They were doing like an OSL type of a technique. And I'm going to probably try to do something similar to that, because I think a straight red candle is kind of boring. I like the little bit of yellow to it. So I'm going to open this beer right now, John. Dirty little freak. And we're going to talk a little bit about Dirty Little Freak here for a second, because I've been waiting a long time to drink this. Here we go. Oh, that's delicious. It's clearly a porter style beer, and the coconut doesn't beat you over the head. It's subtle.
Which is good.
It's subtle. It's really nice. So there you go.
I'm about to try it next time I'm at Duclaw.
Yeah, try do. Oh, I hate the fact that you're so close to it.
And I don't like beer. Isn't that funny?
But I love you, John. So
hey, next time you're down, we'll have to go. It's not that far from where I am.
No doubt, man. So probably the next time I'm in your neck of the woods, it's going to be New York City.
New York City.
Yeah, they have a shuttle or some shit that goes down there, right?
I have no idea.
Fucking knows. That's a level of travel I can't identify with. So
All, all I know is how much it costs to get a flatbed of material up to New York City. That's what I know.
is it expensive?
More than you'd think.
Wow. Okay. So, folks, I'm gonna start on this guy. I've got to fix his fucking ropes because it hurts my brain a little bit. But now we're gonna start talking about things that are gonna probably, I was on the phone today with Matt Wilson. Were you aware of that, John?
I was not aware of that.
I wasn't really. That guy wouldn't take my call if he was the last person on Earth and I was the other last person on Earth, and I had food, and he didn't. So we're gonna get this shit out here. John, there's a real sense of urgency, I think, in the community right now around these spam lists.
Yes.
And
there is.
John, I would like you to kind of walk our listeners through what a spam list is. I mean, we may have some newer people out here; they may not know.
Yeah.
What is a spam list, and what makes it kind of tough on the game?
Well, spam list is when you take any one model or unit or solo and just put a ton of them in there, usually with a cacher that accentuates their bonuses and, covers their shortcomings a little bit to get a huge advantage out of that.
Indeed.
The biggest, and Kev Bryant actually popped a note on one of our Facebook posts that he thinks the biggest culprits, aside from Khador with the Mad Dog spam, is Unatu, who just came out with her Griffins. All the lists have tons and tons of Griffins to just try and get effect out of her feet and such.
Mm-hmm.
The Mercenaries, the Rule of Gun Bunny spams. Apparently there's Abby 2 Shredder spam. She's seen a bunch of them on the table. She's seen them on the table with 15 of them, which is a lot like the old
Thagrosh 2. Yeah.
And then anyone with Synergy spamming whatever the most cost-effective Jax is. In Mark II, it was Viros with Griffins because that was good stuff.
It reminds me of Amon with Dervishes, which is something that a lot of people tried to make work, but because of the old War Machine rules, it really couldn't work terribly effectively. But now with some of the new mechanics in Mark III, I think it's bringing some of the spammy lists up to the forefront.
And absolutely, and I would say that while definitely the Abby 2 Shredder spam and the Una 2 Hunter Griffin spam are spam lists, they're not the ones we're worried about as much because Hordes has a balancing factor on spam, and that's called Fury. If you get a lot of effect out of the beasts, you're going to run hot on Fury, and they're not going to be as effective next turn, and a canny player could even use them against you a little bit. Granted, you're still getting great advantage out of having a very effective model, and maybe Una's feat with her Griffins is pretty amazeballs.
It sure is.
But the what it is on the War Machine side, it's the fact that you get a free focus for every Warjack in your control area, and that it's just a multiplication of that focus the more you have.
Right. A lot of the controversy that comes around spam lists is related around, and a lot of the discussion is, did PP do enough work to balance against someone that goes out and, for economic reasons, is capable of buying just a lot of these of a single model for a very single-minded list? And
I'm going to say no, because there's no way they could have. Because honestly, that kind of playtesting, while it would be amazing to find someone who does that kind of playtesting, no one has the time to do that kind of playtesting. That's the kind of game that's in development for years and years and years. When they talk about edition and like 5 years later it comes out, then they've done all of the playtesting that they possibly could. And in the modern business world, you can't do that.
No, and especially where you had Mark III, which I think is pretty universally recognized as coming out maybe a little bit earlier than what they had intended it to. Mm-hmm. In order to address other competitive pressures that they were seeing in the market. And that adds up to, while they have told us that we spent 3 years playtesting this, there may have been certain models that were involved in a 3-year playtest. I think it's naive to believe that they were into a full Mark III playtest for 3 years. I don't think that's even reasonable, and I think it's ludicrous for us to try to believe that.
No, they got things to do, and honestly, I feel like they did a solid play test. What they did is they focused on something like this is good, went to the next things, and when they changed things, they didn't look at what they did before and change that to match what changed. So those things get sort of left behind, and then suddenly it's like, oh, we forgot to change that back. Well, shit.
Yeah. And so I think we're dealing with an awful lot of that. I mean, the at some point now the Mad Dog I believe is a 7-point jack.
It is a 7-point jack. I got the stats right here if you care.
Yeah, please do run us through what makes the Mad Dog a particularly egregious. Egregious is maybe a strong word, but
No, egregious is the right word, and there's a simple reason for that. It's because
yes,
it is 7 points and it has 31 boxes.
yep,
No one can chew through that. I mean, Mat 5 and POW 14 is not game breaking. Speed 4 is far from game breaking. Being able to trample for free and getting additional trample attack rolls is also not game breaking because infantry is just not as big of a thing anymore. The real problem is that it is just so damn hard to kill, and with the right support can be a viable threat to a caster.
and it's got jury rigged, which allows it to get fast beyond its stat line. Correct?
Yeah, but that's not a super threat because I mean that puts it up to what we'd call average threat.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Oh, I hate rope.
But it is still an ability it hasn't, but it also has unstable, so it spends more than one focus point. It could blow up. But it gets one for free. You never need to give it any more because it tramples for free. And people play with Karchev, and he gets a lot of bonuses to him too. So really, I think the end of the day is what makes this different than, say, the Gun Bunny spam, which is also quite effective, is the fact that Gun Bunnies only have like 20 boxes.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's a lot of meat to grind through, and they are effective. I mean, POW 14 is exactly at that point where if you can get a charge off with nothing else on the table, and I'm pretty sure Karchev's got something to add to that. I haven't actually taken a look at his spells that well. That you can do some horrible things.
Yep. So, one of the things we wanted to talk about on this show is things that represent spam, because the Mad Dog list is only one example of a list of spam. I'm right now working on a list that is a mon that one might consider spam. And John, would you like me to share that list with the viewers?
Sure, because I could talk about why I don't think it's spam.
Okay. So I'm going to bring up the war rooms here. And my war rooms, I refer to this list as Amon's Mad Dogs. And it is Amon with Hierophant, 2 Vanquishers, a Templar, a Vigilant, and 4 Dervishes. It has 2 Vassals, a Rack, and 2 Small Choirs. So that's the list. That is 75 points right there on the head. And the reason it could be considered, maybe by some people, to be a spam list, is that it has 4 Dervishes in it.
And that's the only thing it could possibly consider spam. But people also don't realize you could just as easily drop, 1 or 2 of them for other jacks for similar cost, and you wouldn't lose much effect, to be honest.
That's true. So in one respect, it is not a spam list because taking away from that, the 4 Dervishes, while formidable, doesn't. It's not the conglomeration of a single model that is causing you to go over the line.
And how many points is a dervish?
A dervish is 7 points, so the same point as a Mad Dog, and it has a lot fewer boxes.
Yeah, it's probably in the mid to high 20s.
Yep, probably.
So yeah, I mean, 4 doesn't feel like spam. I mean, it could be spamish. I mean, because honestly, I feel like FAs seem to be in the 2s and 3 ranges generally. So if it is, it's minor. I mean, like my current Gorton list has 4 blasters, but people could call that spam when some people are playing, according to Dowdark, playing Gorton or Osterman 15. That's not really spam at all. But it's that fine line. That's the thing, and this is the problem that happened back in the day with GW. is the whole army composition was a thing that sort of reared its ugly head in tournaments, and who decides what is balanced and what is not.
Right.
And that's sort of the thing, and it's sort of onto the game designers to decide that. And this actually gets into our Facebook conversation where I'm going next.
Right.
And PP, when they made the new edition, did not want to invalidate. They wanted to invalidate as few purchases as possible.
Right.
And I say that because obviously everyone who played Cephalix had some purchases invalidated, but in my case, two pistol wraiths and a machine wraith is not a big deal. Though one of the local guys had Mobius and two more bloat thralls in addition to pistol wraiths and machine wraiths, so that's a little more. But they're really trying, so they're like, let's just make Jack's FAU because some people had a ton of them, and then make the make the FA for all the units whatever the maximum you could have gotten reasonably in an army. And that, while that's great and it's a good idea for customer, it does leave us in an interesting quandary in a competitive point of view.
Indeed.
So I'm just going to share some of that Facebook conversation. If you want to read the whole thing, I'm just going to gloss over it. Charlie Halloway said he doesn't understand why they don't do anything with phase. He said make infantry 1 or 2, maybe 3 or 4 for bog standard troopers. Then Jackson pieces that aren't that common, 2 or 3 would be fine. And then Hacksaw, who was very much basically a lot of this was Charlie and Hacksaw going back and forth. Hacksaw mentions that field allowances limit sales, and they do, and that's sort of a problem. Is that if you limit how many someone can have, they will never purchase more than that amount.
Right. And that really starts a very interesting conversation around what's important. Is individual sales of models important, or is the health of a diverse list profile more important? And that's what I loved about that conversation between Charlie and Hacksaw.
Mm-hmm. And Charlie goes on to say, lists that make people quit limit sales too. And in that case, why even bother having the rules for field allowance at all? Which is a good point, though it is sort of the scorched earth policy, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not going to balance it properly, fuck it, let everyone take whatever they want.
Yeah.
Which, aside from characters, some games have that way. And then Hacksaw being pragmatic and listing business practices, not his own personal opinion, says that players in Quit and have already made purchases are expendable miniature games. Balance keeps the game playable, but the company needs new players and consistent sales to grow, which honestly is sort of the double core of why Mark III came out so much. Everything had started to stagnate a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
The way they released books, books and models, they couldn't keep up with, so they had to go back to the drawing board. And at that time, they're probably a good portion through what they considered ideal for Mark III, and they'll go, well, let's just get the Mark III new edition out there, so we're not going back and redoing work and change our whole way of releasing models.
Well, and at
the same time,
and they had backed themselves into a serious corner with the way that they had designed their theme lists.
Mm-hmm.
They got drunk on their own success with theme lists, because they knew that if they power creeped certain theme lists, they could drive sales based on that power creep.
Mm-hmm.
And they got drunk on that.
Were more so than casters were the ultimate in power disparity.
And that was never how the game was originally designed. The game was always designed around Warcaster power curve.
Yep, and now this point solves into a lot of specific talks about American business practices and such. Jump on our Facebook page, give it a good. It is still a good read. And then Kovnik Scotty Potty jumped in at the end and said he believes that field allowance opened up because of the theme forces, and that's absolutely true. Like Dracoons and Doomreavers and Khador were expanded to make it so you could use whichever ones you had from your theme list.
But I will tell you this, folks: if you don't know who Hacksaw is, and you might not if you're a newer player, Hacksaw is the architect of Steamroller.
Mm-hmm.
Without Hacksaw, there is no Steamroller, and it is moved. He has not worked on Steamroller, to my knowledge, for a couple of years now.
Mm-hmm.
But the basic architecture of Steamroller, with objectives and a lot of the core concepts for many of the scenarios, are straight up from Hacksaw.
Every time
And-
you play Incursion, that's Hacksaw.
Absolutely, and anytime you play many of those different lists of those different scenarios, Hacksaw had a great influence on their existence. And
Mhm.
Andrew's I think one of the smartest guys I've ever met. I mean, straight up smart. And when Hacksaw speaks, I listen because he always has a thoughtful thing to say. So, and Charlie Holloway, who is another individual in here I highly respect because of, I think that Charlie's attitude towards sportsmanship and the fun of the game is something that, quite frankly, sometimes doesn't get all of the attention that it probably ought to. So, guys, get over to the Painting with Men Off John Facebook site and take a read of this, because these are a couple of real titans in the Northeast area having a wonderful discussion about this particular topic.
No name calling.
No, they handle it very
Take that,
maturely
Internet.
because Hacksaw and Charlie are super awesome people. And
Yep.
part of me stepping away from the convention scene, one of the reasons I am sad is that I don't get to see Charlie and Hacksaw so much anymore.
Mm-hmm. And Chili just jumped in the chat room, and he said, Hacksaw's the reason tournaments exist. If it wasn't for him, we would all be sitting in our deployment zones, giving each other the finger, or killing one enemy model and then running away for the rest of the game.
Without
Which
question.
is things I heard about.
Yeah,
from
which
Mark
is,
One.
without question, the reason we have a balanced tournament scene in this game is because of Hacksaw. I agree that 100%. Anybody that tells you that Hacksaw isn't responsible for the competitive nature of this game and the ability to have a competitive game, in that, folks, even if you don't play competitively, that still means that you have a great casual game to play too. Hacksaw doesn't get nearly enough credit for his impact on this particular game, except
He
from,
runs a darn fine tournament, too.
oh my God, I would love to play in a tournament with Hacksaw again, because that guy keeps it straight, and he keeps it, he's very fair, and he keeps it on the up and up. I have a lot of respect for him.
And then on that thread, the final thought right before the show started was Flight Medic. And he said, I'm gonna paraphrase what he said. Basically, they started as PP started as the anti-GW, and now they're hitting the wall. They have major skew bloat. There's so many units out there and everything. And then they could go the route of arbitrary FA restrictions on models that didn't have it, or they could even put the dreaded force organization chart, which is something GW had to do because towards the end of second edition 40K, it was starting to get a lot of spam of the really good stuff.
I think what we're
That's
going
a good point, and
Yep.
They really want to not be the things that they're looking at what GW did wrong, and they're trying not to do it. And honestly, when you try not to do whatever when someone else did wrong, is great, but you'll end up making your own mistakes. But that's the world. That's learning.
I think it's more important for them beyond not doing what GW did. It's, why did GW do what it did, and how can we avoid the unintended consequences? Because it turns out Games Workshop's not dumb. They did what they did for various reasons, and maybe those reasons were right and maybe they were wrong. But I think that as War Machine players, I think we're beginning to realize that many of the things that they did do were for good business reasons and had legitimate reasons for what they were doing. It's important for the gameplay of War Machine and Hordes that they not copy the same unintended consequences. And that is, I think, the biggest kind of takeaway from the spam discussion is, how can we step away from spam, because we know that it creates unintended gameplay consequences where things are not fun to play against, but still preserve the business model.
So we're sort of in an interesting position. There are really, in my view, three ways that this can be dealt with. One of which I feel PP is going to do. The other two, I think there's no chance in hell of them supporting, because one of it involves us. The first one that I think they're going to do is they're going to make a new tournament that has arbitrary FA on extra things.
Yeah.
The way something Will Schick said in one of his articles, someone asked a question like, "Oh, are you going to limit FA of things that are already out?" And it made me really sounded like they weren't going to, but they'll probably do a tournament where you've got some extra FA lists, problems or restrictions. Sorry, and I don't have a problem with that, honestly. And if they push it as the big thing, if it is better for the game, we'll adopt it and we'll make it so.
Mm-hmm.
The second way is to just impose the FAs. Go like, we're sorry, we have to do this. In fact, the best way to do that, and then introduce an alternate play style, maybe a casual one, hashtag Arthur Casual, and
Boom.
that it lets you play with all that stuff in a more casual way.
Yep.
In fact, I did a little rant on this on one of the upcoming co-host corners about how we all look at tournament play and not so much casual play, and we need to. But neither here nor there. It's a good discussion for another time. And the third way is on us, and it's a brutal way, and I don't suggest it, but it's going to happen in a lot of stores. It's basically peer pressure. You shame the guys who do it until they don't do it anymore, and that's not inclusive. That's bad, but so is that. It's the damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you shame them, that's bad. We don't want to shame them. We want everyone inclusive. But on the other hand, they have to realize that maybe these spam lists are not for all the time play. Because I know some guys who use them all the time. They don't care. It's like, this is my list. I play it all the time. And there's a time and a place. Tournaments are the time. Tournaments are the place. At least right now. Not everywhere else. So
I think that you've actually hit upon the solution, John, and that is the tournament format that that requires the FA restriction. And I think that the only way that you fix in this game that particular set of conditions is if that particular FA restriction becomes steamroller.
Mm-hmm.
If they just say base steamroller has these FAs, then you will get it to stick. If base steamroller does not have those FAs built into it, it will not stick and it will not make a difference. If they keep on promoting things like champions or whatever these specialized formats are that are not steamroller, I think that you will see that more often than not they will not be adopted and they will not make an impact at the local game store level. And at the local game store level is where they need to win this war. Mm-hmm. They need to win it at each and every LGS so that people want to come back week in and week out and find themselves playing against fun lists that are not spammy, and they can impose an FA without imposing an FA. And the way of imposing an FA that's not an FA is by saying that Steamroller has an FA. And because of the ubiquitous nature of Steamroller, it will by implication create the meta that they want to drive.
Truth. And on one of the options, the if you will, the peer pressure one, Dowdark just mentioned that his only issue with option 3 is it's not the player's fault. They're using the rules as they are written. The fault is the company's for making it and it's being placed on the paper. Basically, it's the company's fault for making it.
I don't disagree.
Which is the old don't blame the player, blame the game. And I feel that's a very American modern viewpoint, and it is wrong.
Okay.
It's not necessarily the player's fault. I'm not saying they're wrong. The rules say you can do it. I have no problem with them doing it. But that mindset is wrong. In a tournament, everything that's written on the paper is absolutely fine. I have no problem. You do the most crazy, quasi-shady thing that's allowed by the rules, I have absolutely no problem with it. None whatsoever. But in a friendly game, to pick up games in a store, it's a different beast. And you can't just bring that shit to your local store again and again and again and expect the meta to stay. You have to build the meta. Maybe like, someone's like, I want to play. I'm playing for a tournament. Let me play something cool. Then you bring out your big dog list.
Yeah.
It's like any list. And we have to get people away from the whole, well, it's not my fault. The rules say I can do that. That really doesn't make it right.
I agree with you, John. I at first I wasn't sure where you're going, but now I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
Is that
as long as
Go ahead.
As long as it's in the rules, it's fine. Like, don't anyone ever think. And if you go to a tournament that's not advertised beforehand that they're changing the core rules of the game, as soon as they drop that shit on you, just like an adult, go like, all right, I'm going to drop, take my stuff, go to the store, ask for a refund, just tell them, like, look, this is what happened. I don't agree with it. It's not right. I'm not angry. I'm just going to be an adult about it. I just want my refund because we're not playing by the rules that I'm expecting.
Yep.
And there's no shame in that. None. You're expecting a set of rules. You should get to play by that set of rules. But outside of a tournament, the tournament is a social contract of gamers. These are the rules we're playing by. The Steamroller packet as printed and the options listed by the director. But in a pickup game, the social contract rules are just up in the air. No one knows what they are. You can assume that it's Steamroller standard, but not everyone makes the time to talk about that and make sure that's how you want to play. And these spam lists, or not just spam lists, any absolutely brutal list, sort of hurt that because the opponent may not realize they brought their list and they're just playing, and suddenly you're like crushing souls and shit.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily right. It's up to us to police ourselves. You know, at the end of the day, there's only one person who's got to be okay with what you do, really, and that's you. You got to wake up in the morning and be like, yeah, I'm okay with what I did.
Yep. And I think that, you know, I go back to what we were talking about a little bit earlier, and that is I really think that that FA restriction gets at some of what we're trying to do, and the FA restriction at the Steamroller level helps really clear a lot of this stuff up because it gets to the base core version, the way the game is played, and unless you address the base core way that the game is played, you are not going to achieve the overall system approach to improving the gameplay the way that you want to. The Steamroller has become too ubiquitous and has become too much of an ingrained, important part of this game to say that unless you change the base version of the game, you are not really affecting the outcomes for the vast majority of the players.
Indeed, absolutely.
So, anyhow, boy, that was good. That was a good topic. God damn it.
Apparently, alcohol makes me a bit ranty.
That's okay. We rant our shit out of it. We're trying to help this game. God damn it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, I never want anyone to feel like I'm saying they can't play something. Just don't think that. Just communicate.
Just don't play it against me.
Well, no, play it against me. Just let me know. Like, oh, hey, I'm bringing my A game. Oh, absolutely, cool. Bring your A game. I'll bring my A game. If you're like, I'm trying out something weird, I'll try out something weird too. Or you tell me like, I'd like you to try something towards X or Y. I mean, sometimes that's what pickup games are for. Sometimes you want tournament practice. Sometimes you just want to try something out.
Yep.
And let that be a you know, sort of a thing that we need to all get better on. Every single one of us is communicating with your opponent so you can both have a fun game because no one's getting what they don't expect.
Yep, exactly. I mean, I can tell you so many instances where I went to a game store and I wanted to play something casual, and I even told my opponent I wanted to play something casual, and they haul out this ridiculous thing that even smells of net decking. I'm not net decking, but teching against me.
Teching, yeah. So a little antidote here from my old 40K days. I was a big orc player because orcs rule the universe.
And I'm not disapproving of that at all.
And I gets the random guy in the local GW battle bunker, and he's like, "Oh, what are you playing?" I'm like, "I'm playing orcs." He flips through his notebook, brings up a list. I see at the top says versus orcs, and puts his list on the table.
Awesome. Thank you for teching against me, you jerk.
Don't feel bad. I crushed his soul.
Good for him. Good for you. I mean,
and so that doesn't always happen, but I mean, don't do that. Just if they want you to. Sometimes I want you bring this is the list I'm playing. Bring the list you would bring against that would be in your tournament stable. Just drop that shit on me. Sometimes I want that.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone loves a challenge, and that's why to finish up sort of the spam. That's why spamming is never going to completely break the game. Some people just want that challenge of how do I beat that.
Yep.
And challenge is good sometimes.
I don't disagree. So there you go, folks. That's our take on spam. I want to talk a little bit about our Khador dojo because we promised Kovnik Scotty Potty that we were going to do some Khador dojo. So, John, why don't you start off with yours while I'm washing the shit out of this gator?
You are watching the shit out of him. All right. Well, I'll start off by saying my apologies. It may not be as good as I wanted because Khador is not my faction. I don't
Yeah.
mean that as in I don't play them. I don't necessarily like the way their units are built. They have units are meant for one thing and not anything else. And that I like multitask units. There's no Idrians in here.
There you go.
You know, there's no NIS. There's none of those multi-purpose units as much. There's a couple, but in any case, I went with Vlad 1 because Signs of Importance is awesome. And if there's two people I like in Khador, it's Vlad and Harkovich. And I didn't want to do Harkovich, so I went with Vlad.
There you go.
So it's Vlad the Dark Prince. I have a War Dog because War Dogs are cool.
Yes, they are.
And I saw no need for Reinhold or Madeline or Silas. His jacks are a Decimator because it's super cool. Rate of fire 2 of that gun's pretty fun. Because Signs of Importance can make that a bit more accurate or hit a little harder. I have Drago because it's his character jack and it kills infantry like it's his job.
Because it is.
I brought Torch because he's like taking a second Decimator, just a little different. And I like the grenade launchers on it, especially with the targeting flares, gives me a little anti-stealth, so I don't need to take Reinhold or something. Assault is cool. He just seems like a very cool jack. He's got a lot of things to do, and that's great for any list with Vlad. You want models that can do a lot of stuff because you're getting extra effect from each model out of Signs of Importance. And then I brought a Grolar because, hey, everyone waited a million years for that to come out. Might as well put it in here. And honestly, it's got some good stuff. You know, D3 plus 2 shots with its gun, maybe only POW 12, but with Signs of Importance, that's like effectively POW 13 or 14, which is pretty good. Piston Hammer is a hell of a weapon with RAM.
Mm-hmm.
So, and dual attacks, so it can do both its melee and range attacks, and can also do range attacks while in melee. So you can get a lot of effect out of that, and it's a cool jack addition. So a lot of points in jacks, and a lot of points for everything else. And this is infantry's where I got my problem.
Okay.
My original build was actually I had the Widowmaker Marksmen that are still in this one, and the Widowmaker Scouts that are in this one, which is the Widowmaker unit, because sometimes you just need to clear off a single model that's in the way.
Yep.
And they're good at that.
Yes, they are.
But then after that, I had 2 Manowar Dracoon, and I had 4 points left, and I wasn't sure what to do with them. And then I realized I'm holding zones with pretty much just a jack, and I wanted to get a little switch here, get a little something late game after my jacks are killed. So I dropped the 2 Dracoons, and I took a Widowmaker Marksman to go with the Scouts.
Mm-hmm.
Swift Hunter's good, a little bit of reposition, not bad.
Mm-hmm.
Then I added a Manowar Kovnik because, hey, apparently the Iron Fang Kovnik no longer has Shield March.
No, he doesn't. And that's the reason you'll see in my list that he's gone.
Yep. But Manowar Kovnik has Desperate Pace. Plus, he's a super cool model, and I love his abilities. He's got a good gun, which goes a long way. He's got Assault. I don't have any jacks for him, which is kind of unfortunate because he does have Assault on as a drive. He can also do slams, just really awesome.
Yep.
And then I took a full unit of Manowar Shock Troops because first turn, they can probably run, and after that, they're probably going 6 inches in shield wall. They got guns and good melee. They're great late game. They can hold a zone fairly well. They don't really want jacks going up against them, but honestly, you can probably send your jacks against their jacks. 4 heavies is a lot to chew through for anyone. And I got 1 point left and nothing really to do with it. But so that's my list.
I think it's pretty strong. I mean, I think what we're going to find here is that we have some similarities between our lists, and that should shock nobody. We do a show here every week, and it's possible that some of our list dojo has creeped into each other's lists after all this time.
And I could see swapping my list. I could see taking, Winter Guard or Winter Guard Rifle Corps with Kovnik Joe instead, because they get a lot of use out of Signs of Importance as well, and they're as close as they get to a multi-purpose unit, because Kovnik Joe can sort of, between Kovnik Joe and Signs of Importance, you can make up for your deficiencies.
I mean, Kovnik Joe is just a model that I just lust after, and would love to play with. I mean, he just makes stuff hit, and it like almost nothing else in the game does. So I mean, that's it. That's a big deal. So I like your list, John. Is the bottom line?
Yeah, it'd be fun. I can see myself building this list. I would never play Khador as a full faction. I don't think they're for me, but I could see taking this and then maybe some new version of the Vlad 3, all the horses.
Oh God, all the horses.
All the horses is such a cool list.
Yep, it sure is. They are so good, and they with it really with Vlad 3, they really show off what they can do. So I guess it's time for me to talk about my list, huh?
Absolutely, hit me up with that.
Oh my God, I'm so in the middle of paint of washing right now. This is so hard to put this model down.
Well, let me instead Maxim DT asks why no shock trooper officer. Simple
Shoot.
point is, he didn't exist when I was playing against Khador, so I didn't know he exists. So what does he do here? Let me because
He's
people may not
really
realize
good.
He's a brand new model, hasn't been released.
He's really good.
He
No,
gives
he's
the
out.
models-
He's out, I think.
Is he?
I think he's
Oh,
out
shit.
recently.
So he's attachment. He's got assault, tactics steady, and tactics sturdy. So it means that they cannot be knocked down or pushed. Gives him assault, and his access critical freeze. Jesus Christ, this guy is awesome. So remember that Widowmaker marksman?
It dropped his ass.
Yeah, absolutely. His ass is gone. Man, poor shock trooper officer is in this because that's what you do.
Yeah, I don't know how you've shot field shock troopers without him.
Yeah, he's really good.
Yeah, he's really, really good. All right, let me get my iPad out here. Wherever the fuck I put it. All right, so let me talk a little bit about my list then.
Absolutely.
So, I need to go back to my other lists here. Khador. And here we go. So, I went with Lord Kos. That was a nice I hit the wrong button. There we go. I went with Lord Kozlov, Viscount of Skarsgård. John, I have no fucking idea what Skarsgård is, let alone a Viscount. So I'm going to say it's a discounted part of him, because it sounds like discount.
He's some sort of nobility, I think. He's
Okay.
not quite Vlad. He's not the Dark Prince or anything. But
He's got himself a very striking beard, and I like that about him. So he's got precision strike on his 2-inch reach Weapon Master 12 sword. Seems good.
Yeah.
He's got sidestep, which is always good.
Yep.
This is his spell list. He's got Avalanche, which is an AoE 4, POW 14, range 8. On a critical hit, models become knocked down. That's legit. He's got Chosen Ground, which gives models in the battle group get Pathfinder and Steady. Pathfinder on a Jack is always good, and I think that's probably the reason I picked this guy to go after. He's got Fury, +3 to melee damage rolls, but suffers -1 defense. Defense in general for Khador is defense I don't give a shit. So +3 melee is kind of one of the things I kind of built this list around. Razor Wind is a POW 12 nuke that I don't give a shit about. Tactical
It's shitty nuke.
Tactical Supremacy. A target friendly faction model gains reposition 3, which is kind of fun. Okay, and I based my list somewhat around it. Now Onrush, it's his feat.
Oh.
+2 speed and unyielding for a round. That's a big deal.
Khador Jack should not have unyielding. This just
Ever. So I did not build a Jack heavy list. I was looking at this from the standpoint of saying that we should probably, if we're railing against Mad Dogs a little bit on this show, we should probably try to do something that isn't that. So
Yes.
I did pick 2 Jacks. I picked Ruin and I picked Black Ivan. I always like to have the ability to have some AoEs in my list, because you're going to come up against something invariably that is relatively high defense, and you need an AoE to deal with it. So Black Ivan is my answer for that. Ruin gives me the ability to go up against enemy infantry and kind of self-power the Jack. Kozlov is only Focus 6, so I need to have something that makes him a little bit more autonomous. Now, so I built this list around the Iron Fang pikeman. Nothing strikes fear in my heart the way an Iron Fang pikeman does. And with Fury, I can hot swap Fury between both of them, making them POW 16s. And I went with one unit of Black Dragons, and I went with the other group of regular IFP in case I have Pathfinder problems. So I've covered off my Pathfinder. The Black Dragons, if I Iron Zeal and Feet on the same turn, they're plus, if they're engaging, they're +6 armor, which if they shield wall into that position, brings them up to 18, up to 20, up to 23, which is damn near unkillable, or it causes you to overcommit your resources. Either one of which is a wonderful place to be. Now, the Iron Frame Pikemen and the Black Dragons are kind of the centerpiece of this, but there's other things. I've got a Man of War Dracoon, because a Man of War, it gives me speed, it gives me a flanking option, it gives me a hard-to-kill, hard-hitting solo that I can position at the very edge of a round zone and be able to project force forward. I've also
you don't need to have a reason for a Man of War Dracoon. Just put him in. You don't need a reason. Just
I also
Dracoon.
have a unit of Widowmaker Marksman because I'm so jealous of that unit that I can't. If I was playing Khador, they'd be in every list. And I also have a Marksman in there as well because what's one more? Then you're taking a solo every turn, or you're taking anything you want. Essentially, you're doing some major damage too.
Mm-hmm.
And then I put Eris, Angel of the Retribution, in here. I wanted the ability to pull an upkeep reliably because I don't necessarily have a great way to deal with. I don't have any to hit buffs. I don't have a lot of armor buffs. I mean damage buffs. This gives me the ability to pick a target and say, okay, that's a thing I can kill this turn, and that's why I went with that direction. So in general, my list again is Kozlov, Ruin, and Black Ivan, the Widowmaker Marksman, a Dracoon, the Eris 2, Black Dragons with the Officer and Standard, Iron Fang Pikemen with the Officer and Standard, and Widowmaker Scouts. Thoughts, John?
I'm looking at it right here. Looks pretty good. I agree with Eris in there because you don't have any way of, basically, I can Signs of Importance and roll my way out of any situation. You don't have that option, so it's definitely a good idea.
Yep.
Dracoon can hold his own in a pinch. Black Dragons can hold his own like a champ. You literally have to start sending Weapon Masters or Jacks against them. No, it's good.
Yep.
And that extra speed gives them some crazy threats. So you can literally be running in at walking in at 8-inch movement at POW 16, which pretty much makes up for the fact that you're not charging.
Yep.
That's pretty good.
So I'm pretty happy with where the list is. I think that it is it's not a list I will ever own or play. It's way too much. It's way too many Iron Fang Pikemen to put together and paint. That's just never going to happen for me. But I think that it's a good list. Now, Cognic Scotty Potty, who is kind of our Khador go-to guy here as a crony, is saying that they cost too much, and that may be very well true. But I've been playing some lists recently that have double Black Dragons, and I will tell you that turn where they Iron Zeal, they are terrible to get off the table. Now, I kind of wish that that some way we could figure out a way to make the shock troopers, the Man of War shock troopers, it's a little bit faster, because I would love to play those guys, and I have plenty of them back here behind the curtain.
So honestly, I feel like you could put them in this list because tactical supremacy is exactly what makes them faster.
Okay, so let's talk about that. So let's remake this list, but let's, in the interest of Scotty Potty, let's drop both the IFP and the Iron and the Black Dragons, and let me put in some shock troopers.
You want the generics? Because I really like the generics because they're my kind of unit. They do a little bit of everything. Though the bombardiers are not bad either.
I honestly have no use for anything but the regular shock troopers.
Fair enough.
So I'm gonna put those guys, and I'm gonna put their solo in there as well.
Yes, you need the solo because that makes them faster.
So that is the Man of War
Dracoon.
Dracoon?
No, Dracoon. Kovnik.
Man of War Kovnik. Okay, so we got him in there. So I'm still 3 points down. So I put 2 units of shock troopers,
Oh, 2 units. Wow.
and I put the. What do you think, John?
I think 1 unit's good because you can't hot swap the tactical supremacy, unfortunately.
Oh, so there we go. So we'll put the Man of War Kovnik in a set of Man of War shock troopers. Now I'm significantly below. I am, I'm 9. What am I? Math. It's a
You
thing.
didn't put the officer.
19. No.
You need the shock trooper officer. Boom. Yeah, that's see. Maximum DT knows it.
Okay.
Get the UA.
All right. So there we go. I didn't realize it. I was looking at the I was looking at War Room there, and it didn't become immediately obvious. So, I've got 15 points left at this point. So I always like to look at
That was a devastator. Only 14 points. Holy moly.
Texan Razorwood Fury. God, Fury shock troopers kill everything in the universe.
PAL 17 is a thing.
Yeah.
And they're tough enough. They don't need to worry about necessarily worrying about that one round of less armor.
Do you think we should have the? Wasn't there a mechanic or something that fixed Man of Wars?
Any mechanic can. They have the repairable special rule.
Okay. Do you think we should be putting some mechanics in here? It seems like you're putting all your money on those shock troopers. Then it seems like too much.
I feel like that'd be better if you're going with the bombardiers instead, because they're going to stand off and fire more.
Well, how much are bombardiers?
Bombardiers are I think they're 1 point less, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, they're 16. I can't put a full unit of them in.
No, and I don't think a minion's worth it. You could do demo core, not really necessarily what you want.
I'd rather get shot in the dick than put demo core in.
Well, they're melee units. They're fine as melee units.
15 points.
You could put a Jack on the Kovnik. He's got assault. He gives it assault. But unfortunately, you really can't afford anything with a gun.
Nope.
No, none of the ones with a gun. So not worth it without that. Unfortunately, they have not quite fixed Jack Marshals that well.
You know what I'm going to do?
Great Bears are really good with unyielding.
You know what? I like Great Bears. So let's put units of the Great Bears of Gallows-Wood on them. Another unit that absolutely makes me warm in the shorts when I think about them.
And then you got 6 points left, which
might be mechanics.
Yeah, might as well mechanics.
Because let me look at what's in the mercenary solos.
There's a lot of solos in there, but
Hutchuck might be worth it.
I will never argue with Hutchuck. Hutchuck comes out of nowhere and is like, "Suck it, bitches!"
Yeah, I'm gonna put Hutchuck in there because I've got a fully painted Hutchuck that makes me warm when I put him on the table. So we're gonna do that. So here's your revised list, folks. Now that we've had some sanity, in other words, we injected a little John Spencer in it.
Actually, I like your other list too. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, I like big butts, and I will not lie. So,
but Man of Wars are cool, and getting Man of Wars in more units is always good.
Not for nothing, but I can play Man of Wars back here because I got like fucking 3 units of them or some shit back here. So Kozlov, Ruin, Black Ivan, Widowmaker Marksman, Man of War Dracoon, Eris 2, Man of War Kovnik. Oh, this is a cool list. Hutchuck, Widowmaker Scouts, Man of War Shock Troopers with the UA, and Great Bears of Gallows-Wood. That's a lot of kill. And it's and it doesn't, and you can get things, it's fast enough in parts of it to keep you in the game until the bad boys show up, and when they show up, everything dies.
And the Great Bears needed plus 2 inches of threat range.
Yes, they did.
No,
so
never.
I'm kind of okay with that. So there's some dojo for you. I painted a gator. I put some washes on him at least. That's something, right, John?
Absolutely.
It is 8:06,
I
and
actually have a question or two from Flippity Blue from people.
please, give us the business, if you will.
Just save that list real quick. Shut off my tablet. All right, let's hit it up. Well, earlier, and he asked me not to ask this again, but I will anyways. Archimedes says, "Hey John, have you ever run into an issue where you're painting, and you get to a point where you want to start over or buy models that you want to repaint?"
I actually have been to that position where I've wanted to rebuy or something like that. And here's what I found out. And I think the clearest example, this is my Templar model that I have from Protectorate. I went down that path. It was one of the very first of the plastic models that I purchased from Privateer. And I didn't like how it turned out because I tried some different colors on it. I tried some blues and some things like that, and it really didn't match my other color scheme. And this is what I would tell you, is that I repainted it without dipping it. The thing you have to be really super careful of when you do this is that you make sure that your paints are relatively thin, that you're using a wet palette to get you into that position. If you you can repaint a model on top of what you've already painted in order to get the colors the way that you want them to be. You just need to be really careful not to be real thick with it, or else it'll look gloopy, and you don't want that. So I don't recommend throwing stuff away or anything like that. Take it as a personal challenge. Take it as a challenge to say, what can I do with this model to make it the way I want it to be, and go from there. What do you think, John?
I totally agree. I generally don't strip models. I mean, I could see doing that if it's a hard to get model or really expensive. But if it's a cheaper model, I'll just keep the one I have because he's painted. So if you get a tournament that requires painted, he's still good. And then I'll just buy a new one when I get a chance and go at him.
Yeah.
For example, I'm thinking about doing some crazy bases with my minions as an army. So when I get to each individual solo that I own in Mercenaries, if I need them for an army and I really want them to look like they match, I'll go get another one, and then I'll have one in each case, which is kind of, being a little free with money, but it's a lot easier than going and repainting, because maybe the one matches the bases of my mercenaries and the one matches the bases of my minions, and it's okay.
Yeah. I've gotten to the point where, and it might be a little bourgeois, I just can't justify the amount of labor it takes to dip and strip. There was a time in my life I used to. I mean, back in the day, I've done that, but in general, the results are not great, and you end up with paint in places that you can't get out easily, and it ends up making it a very challenging model to repaint on top of everything else, and the results don't tend to be that great. So go ahead, John.
If you do it, don't spray it again. You cannot spray it again. You have to either get the airbrush primer and airbrush it on, or brush it on with a paintbrush, because otherwise it's going to cover up some of the detail, and that's sort of the biggest problem.
Yeah.
But always try and repaint it first. If you were good and nice and thin with your colors beforehand, you can definitely go over it. Or even if you've got the time and you're willing to do the label, get some Q-tips and some acetone. Be very careful. Acetone will eat plastic models. Have some water nearby too. And just acetone off the parts that are too thick, and it'll take it down real quick. And then you hit it with the water afterwards to sort of wash off the acetone. So if it's a plastic model, it's not melting it. You can do that. I've done that with my sculpted Ashlyn. I messed up her face a couple times, so just acetoned it down to the green stuff, and then primed it and painted it again.
Yep. I just noticed we were at 26 people there for a little while, John.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, still good. Good discussion. Oh, whatever. If we had 2 people watching, it'd be a great thing.
Absolutely.
So, go ahead, John.
Threw one more at us.
Yeah.
Interesting. He said, GW just released a new codex, and the community pointed out a rules error which caused some serious bad experience during play. And in a week, it had been FAQ'd, addressed, and quasi-fixed. His question is this a new GW or just a hiccup in the standard GW model of the past 15 years?
I think it's the new GW, to be honest with you.
Absolutely.
I think that GW has found their way, and Privateer should be scared shitless at this point.
Yeah, like you said, it's good for everyone, because honestly, those people who are on the edge between leaving for going back to something or going to something else, they were going to jump ship anyways.
Yep.
They were just waiting for the next thing. This was just everyone was playing it. It's not necessarily my thing. Just waiting for the next big thing to come along, and that's fine. Some people do that.
Yep. I think that that GW's leadership has really found its way, and I think that you're going to see more good player-based corrections from GW in the near future. Now, will it last? I don't know. It's hard to say because they're doing smart things now, but I think that there were a lot of things that were not so smart that they were doing that were relatively simple to fix. And go ahead, John.
Yeah, and honestly, they never did stupid things because they were stupid. They did stupid things because they were trying to address the shareholders. You know, I mean, I can't tell you how many meetings I sat through when I worked at GW where they had their 5-year plan and they had to revise it because the shares were down, profits were down, the shareholders were worried. And that's not a way to run a business. You have to tell shareholders, calm the fuck down. We're going to get our 5-year plan. Let us get through it.
Yeah. You know, Starbucks just announced here last week that Howard Schultz is stepping down. And there's a lot of people that Howard's biggest ability was to be able to tell the shareholders, calm the fuck down, I'm Howard Schultz. And I will do right by you. Now it's up to the next guy to prove himself, to say, calm the fuck down, I know what I'm doing, and take us to that next level. It's the same thing that GW is going through right now.
Mm-hmm.
But
and I'm glad their CEO can do that because, like we've always said, a healthy GW is good for the miniatures industry.
Man, and the miniatures industry needs all the healthy it can get.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wish him well. I mean, John, I'm thinking real serious about getting a Blood Bowl set.
I'm sure I'm going to get a Blood Bowl set. The matter is when.
Yeah, I've fallen out of love with Guild Ball. I understand why people like it, but the fact that they don't keep their rule set even remotely static from one year to the next is not okay with me.
Yeah, we had a little talk about that. I want to really examine it. Maybe I'll cover it on a co-host corner at some point when I really examine the rules and the changes. Because me and the guys had a chat about that. But it's not good for a casual game. And if you're going to be successful, you either have to have a huge hardcore following or you have to be able for the casual people to jump in. And at a low model count area, you need to be casual. This is sort of the problem that Malifaux comes into. It's not necessarily as conducive to a casual player. And it's too bad because it could be because it's low model count.
So I'm going to put out as the poll of the show next week. I'm going to put out there, should I paint Blood Bowl on this show? And
we totally forgot that this week, didn't we?
No. Oh, God damn it. Okay, so poll the show. There it is. Biggest mistake Privateer Press made with Khador. And I think as we talked about spam lists, Mad Dog point cost was pretty much the number one thing that people honed in on. Karchev in general was number 2 because there's a synergy there between that low point cost model and some of the things that Karchev can do. And then I put in there, I didn't know what else to think about, so I put down Behemoth and the Rocketeer damage, because fuck those Rocketeers, I'm going to tell you that right now. With Kovnik Joe, fuck those guys in the mouth. Anyway, but I'm going to put up as poll of the show next week, should I paint Blood Bowl on here? Because I think we're at the point where Blood Bowl is a very viable game that people might want to watch me paint. And I think that they're beautiful models, and hell, I'm willing to pop $100+ into a game system to get those models. I mean, hell, I have Space Hulk, for fuck's sake.
I'll warn you though, I'm okay at War Machine. I'm really good at Blood Bowl.
I'm terrible at anything. So,
Blood Bowl was at one point the leading miniature game at my store when I ran my store. We had leagues with like 30 players in it. It was a grand old time.
Well, then God bless them. Thank God they finally pulled their head out of their ass and decided to, sell something that people really want.
Yeah, no doubt.
And
to be fair, the NAF, which is the independent Blood Bowl people really did a great job of keeping the game alive
Yep.
for all these years, and hats off to them.
So
In fact, I got a half shot here. Ron.
hey, Ron, I'm gonna put a little dirty little freak on that.
Ooh.
I might actually go to my Games Workshop store and buy it.
Let's not get crazy.
I know, right? God, I've got to pee, John. Do you want to start talking about movies while I go pee?
Oh my god, I have so many movies to talk about.
All right, you go. You go ahead. I'm gonna put on the media section. Boom, folks. I'm gonna step away from the camera for a second. John, go.
All right, I'm going to talk about one that Matt John definitely hasn't seen. It's called Death Race 3 Inferno. So it is the third Death Race movie, as evidenced by the number next to its name. And it is a direct sequel to Death Race 2, which was a prequel. So it's a prequel sequel movie. It has all the same cast, plus the main villain, sort of replacing, God, what the hell is his name? Marcellus Wallace. God, my brain stopped. Replacing Marcellus Wallace is the bad guy from Mission Impossible 2. He basically buys him out, so he buys out his company, so he owns Death Race and everything, and he's got ideas. So he takes it to a new prison that's in Africa, through the desert. They're going to run... Oh, Death Race is all over the place. So that's kind of a cool concept, though, man, it was not well done. Not well done at all. Ving Rhames, thank you, Big Weasel. My brain stopped. They'll always be Marcellus Wallace to me. So they had a couple new minor characters. One of which is like the television producer down in Africa, and she's really cool. British accent, black lady. She's very feisty, very authoritative. I thought she did a darn good job. The rest of the cast, they were getting a paycheck. Some of them were trying to be weird, trying to be cliches. Some of them succeeded, but most of the acting was poor, very poor. It did sort of have to rewrite the ending to the last one a tiny bit, but you know they have to do that sometimes to shoehorn in the sequels. All the other racers are underdeveloped. They don't get any real time except for 14K, who's also been in every single movie. Congratulations, Robin Show. You and the guy who plays Liz are the only ones who've made it through all three movies. Congrats. You get a prize never. So it's not as good as the first two. That's saying something because the second one wasn't exactly amazing. It was a good Netflix watch. This is not even a good Netflix watch. It's scattershot. It's oh my god.
What are we talking about, pal?
Death Race 3 Inferno.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah, that's about the size of it. Like I said, it's not as good as the first two. The only thing that brings it out of the bottom tier of absolute shite is the Oceans-like ending that I'm like, all right, tip of the hat to that ending. That was well played. Now, if you'd only get some actors to portray their roles properly to the first part of the movie, it would have been great.
Yeah.
It would have been okay. Let's not go crazy. So at one point they're racing through towns and they have live weapons, and I'm thinking giving convicts live weapons as they race through towns with actual people living in them is probably not the best idea.
The Purge meets Death Race.
Yeah, basically. And then, of course, since it's in Africa, the guards don't have dogs. Oh no, they have hyenas on leashes because that's a thing you do in Africa.
No, because hyenas are still wild fucking animals.
Yeah, so this is not a very good movie. Honestly, skip it. Watch Death Race. Watch Death Race 2. Death Race 2 is an enjoyable time. Probably worth it for most people. This is not. 4 shots of Kraken. I'll give it 3.5 shots of Kraken because it's not the worst movie I've seen recently. I reviewed that on Co-Host Corner coming up. Oof.
We talked about Arrival last week. I can, Belinda and I right now are deep into the rewatch of Babylon 5 for me, like the third or fourth time I've watched the entire series. Folks, I can't argue this point strongly enough. Just don't watch the first series. Don't watch
You don't like the first season?
No, just don't watch it.
The problem is you need to watch it to get because everything builds upon the first season. Not everything, but the first season has a lot of episodes that are referenced back later, and it's really important.
You need to watch the first season so you know who the captain of Babylon 5 was at that time.
Some good Garibaldi stuff. So it's not great sci-fi. It's decent sci-fi. It does not hit the lofty standards of seasons 2 through the end.
Because it took us like 8 months to watch season 1, and we powered through season 2 in 3 sittings.
But also remember, that's going to happen with a lot of series because season 1 is just building, a lot of world building, a lot of setting the stage.
I get that.
Straczynski is totally playing a longer game with Babylon 5. Babylon 5 is one of the best sci-fi series out there,
without question. Without question. And to your point, John, he does play the long game probably better than any writer because he came with a very specific idea of where this was all going to go. Mm-hmm. And as good as season 2 is, season 3 and 4 turned it up to 12 and 15.
2 of the greatest seasons of sci-fi on TV ever. And all due respect to Battlestar Galactica, the remake.
Oh, this is way better.
Only because you can tell he knew what he was doing through the entire thing. Mm-hmm. They took a left turn in the middle of it. I don't think they were planning on in the middle and the beginning, which is fine.
Mm-hmm.
But it lost a lot of people because suddenly, like, you make the left turn. Are you in? Yes or no? Because it's different now.
Yeah.
And if you're in, it's still good. If you're not, you go on.
So we finished season 2. It's amazing. It's melodramatic. It's a space soap opera. It is. The special effects do not hold up. The computer graphics stuff is just not up to today's standard. I mean,
For a mid-90s television show, they're amazing.
It was spectacular. I'm just saying, so Elite Dangerous, the game of du jour these days, takes so much from Babylon 5, it's not even funny. Yeah. The space stations in Elite Dangerous are straight up Babylon 5. And that's fine. But the graphics in Elite Dangerous are better than Babylon 5. And that's fine. There's a 20-year difference. And one would expect it to be better. But anyway, so Babylon 5, if you have not watched it or don't own it, get it. It is a wonderful. It is arguably the greatest science fiction series ever to be put on television.
It's a crying shame that it's not on Netflix or Amazon Prime. So, one of those guys who just step their game up and get it on there.
I don't get how it doesn't exist on one of those two platforms.
Because it has to be they just don't know. They just don't realize that it's
good.
It's one of my favorites up there. I mean, honestly, it's higher than Star Trek in my opinion. Yes, I said that.
Oh yeah,
it's higher than Star Trek.
I agree with that. I agree. It's way better than any of the new Star Trek.
Yeah, and I have to do this every time Babylon 5. I got to give a Ron to all the actors from that show we've lost. It's been quite a few, guys.
So many.
Ron.
God, Garibaldi's gone.
Dr. Franklin's gone. Zach's gone.
Yep.
Andrew Chakar's gone. It's bad. I mean, and Andrea Kostoulis' Chakars, him and Peter Jurassic just are amazeballs with the entire thing.
How they are able to twist your emotions on Peter Jurassic's character of Lando Malari.
I'm sympathetic. Oh, he's a fuckball, but I still like him.
And where they end up together is...
Those guys are great.
Man.
It's good sci-fi, guys. God, you support it. It's great. I feel like if
it's Firefly level great.
Firefly had gotten its full run, it would have been up there with Babylon 5. Maybe not as lofty.
Yeah.
Because it tells it's space opera, but a little more hard sci-fi.
Yeah.
Because they care about physics a little bit.
Oh, they play physics correctly in Babylon 5. Ships act correctly. They're not airplanes in space. They're fucking spaceships, and that's really really cool. So anyway, so Babylon 5, get over there. John, what do you got for us?
Oh my god, I watched a lot of movies this week. Temporary roommate likes to sit on the couch, get pet, and watch movies.
I'm gonna shut the
Uh,
fuck up while you tear us through this.
I'm gonna hold off on one that I could use elsewhere because it's on Netflix. But Amazon Prime has Megaforce on it. If you're ever interested in watching it, and to one up that, it's the Rift Tracks version.
Oh, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, it's a good time. You get to see that movie, and they get to lampshade all the crazy, silly 80s shit that happens in that.
Nice.
And you could see just how. So there's a heart in that movie. I mean, I know I covered it. There's a heart in that movie, and the second time watching it through, I was like, this movie had potential. They just took it all the wrong places at all the wrong times. Like, I don't know if I mentioned the original, but there's the bad guy shows up, and he and the good guy have such a great camaraderie. You're like, this part is fun. They're playing off each other. They know they're going to have to try and kill each other, but they're still totally civil. It's awesome. It's got some fun stuff in it, and it's super fun when you have the Rift Tracks guys making fun of it. Make sure you stay through the credits because at the end of the movie, there's usually since it's the 80s, there's the theme song for the movie, which is the song called Megaforce by 707, which if you like standard quote unquote shitty 80s rock, it's a hoot.
Nice.
But throughout it, you get Mike singing along to it, saying it's his favorite song ever, which is hilarious. I give that version of it like 2 shots of crack, and it's a good watch. Very enjoyable.
Very cool.
And then, in addition to The Rock, which I'm going to save for Co-host Corner because that's on Netflix now, just this month, go see it. The Rock.
Oh, I love The Rock with oh fuck,
Nicolas Cage and Sean Connery.
those guys.
And John Spencer.
Oh my god.
Oh, so I'm gonna maybe we'll cover that another week or something if you see it. If not, I'll do it on Co-host Corner. But,
I remember that movie so well. Just on I love The Rock.
It is a good time. But I saw The Shadow with the roommate because we're doing some superhero gaming, and one of the guys based his character off The Shadow. So I didn't have the DVD, and it's one of the few of that aren't on Netflix or anything. So I bought it. There's sort of a trilogy of sort of those weird superheroes that came out in the 90s, which was the Phantom, which I did on Co-host Corner, the Rocketeer I did on the main cast, and then this one, The Shadow. And this is sort of my middle favorite. The Phantom's my least, the Rocketeer's my best. This is my middle favorite. It's got some good stuff to it. Alec Baldwin is great. He's at the height of his acting career.
Mm-hmm.
He does a decent job through all of it. In fact, I would say he doesn't really let the movie down. Some of the other stuff lets the movie down at points. They were obviously trying too hard for that lower PG rating because he's got 2 guns. A lot of problems solve themselves when you've got 2 guns.
Yeah, buddy.
Rumor has it Mongol warriors not terribly threatening when you've got 2 45s. Just saying. And that's sort of the same problem the Phantom had, and I feel like that's sort of a product of its time, so you don't hold it too far against it. That's what all the movies were doing. But it does stand out a little bit. Penelope Ann Miller is the love interest, and she's slightly more competent than others. It is funny that the Rocketeer has the least competent love interest, Jenny. And then this one has a very competent. She has some other abilities. I'm not going to spoil it, even though it's an old movie. You should go see it. And then, of course, the Phantom has their love interest, who's also somewhat competent and feisty. And she's kind of nice. The roomie liked her. She was interesting. The bad guy's played by, I think it's John Lone. He's supposed to be a descendant of Genghis Khan. And he and Alec Baldwin have a good camaraderie to themselves, too. There's a scene where they're just sitting there and they're talking very civilly. For people who are violent, bloodthirsty murderers, they're sitting there talking civilly through the whole thing. It's very cool. I like that. They didn't really make him a sympathetic villain, but that's not really an early 90s thing. That's more of a late 90s. So overall, it's pretty fun. Not terribly long. Definitely has some problems. Has Tim Curry in it. That's not a problem. That's usually good.
That's usually very good.
It's not bad. There's a young Ian McKellen in it.
Hash, hashtag he's never been young.
No, but he's visibly younger.
Excellent.
And it's a fun movie. I give it 2.5 shots a crack. It is pretty standard action movie fare as far as enjoyability. Another one of those ones I'd love to see rebooted. I feel like nowadays with modern sensibilities, they could do, if Deadpool can do good with an R rating, this could do well with a PG-13 just for a little bit of bloodshed because he's got 2 guns and should probably use them occasionally.
Indeed.
Oh, and to finish out media section before we go, I've been listening to a band called Dragon Force.
Dragon Force, you say?
Yes, they are speed metal. I'm not sure if they're officially classified as speed metal because, I'll be honest, metal has so many classifications, it's downright silly.
Speed metal's one of my favorites, though.
I would say that it's speed metal. They call it power metal on Wikipedia. We'll see, but I definitely just give them a listen. Through the Fire and Flames. If you listen to Through the Fire and Flames and you like it, you're in. Go check some of their stuff. Yep, Congo the Drummer Gun knows what I'm talking about. That's a great song. They got 2 lead guitarists, and they'll go back and forth on solos, and they have different sort of styles, which is great. It's just fun metal to listen to. Check it out.
There you go. Well, folks, I'm going to tell you what, we are very close. I cannot believe how I have fucked up the cropping on tonight's episode. It's like literally, it's the worst cropping that has ever existed on this show. There we go. There. Now it looks correct on the screen. So, folks, we talked a little bit about maybe some controversial topics this week. All in all, I think that we took a positive look at them. So, I'm going to turn the music on because that's what we do at this point in the show. There we go. There they are. The soothing tones, folks. Each week we get together to take a look at things, and next week we will pick a controversial topic. Like, why gators suck. Or, why Will Pagani will make a huge difference at Privateer Press. Or maybe we'll pick another controversial topic, like why Chili Winters celebrated Will's birthday, even though Will was in Seattle, and he put cake on his house or something. Or something like that. We'll deal with the controversial topics because we're not afraid. On behalf of my co-host, Mr. John Spencer, he's that guy. He's up in the catbird seat. I'm Menoth John. We're here each week so that you can enjoy things that are enjoyable. I wish you all a wonderful week. I wish you all profit in what you work. The Ferengi would want it that way. On behalf of Mr. John Spencer, I'm Menoth John. Good night, everybody. Have a wonderful week, and we'll see you this time next week on Painting with Menoth John. Good night, everybody.